And can you help pass these out, please? Thank you. And again, I encourage you, if you still have this notebook from last fall or summer, whenever we did that series, keep it handy. The goal is that we will do this probably once a month on average. By the way, we won't do it in June because the last Sunday of June will be our congregational meeting, our annual meeting. But likely on a similar rhythm of maybe the third or fourth Sunday of the month, we'll do classes like this. The goal is that they're brief and practical, okay? So this is not deep theology. This isn't, another Bible study. This is like the very practical, hands-on ways that we live out what we call the discipleship pathway. And so I put in the notes that are coming around at the very top what this pathway is. And we use a lot of different tools and some acronyms, so it's really important that we understand where everything fits within our pathway. And so the pathway begins with extraordinary prayer. And then the second step is live as missionaries. And this, by the way, the live as missionaries is where the bless model fits. Okay, so we talk about the bless model a lot. Begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, share. All right, so good acronym. Just understand the bless model fits there. Is that now, because the bless model is all about, again, how do we live as missionaries in the world? And it's through blessing our neighbors. And then, but here's the goal. What happens when we get to the end of bless? The last S in bless is share. So when we get to share, that's good, but now what? Where do they go from there? And it sort of drops. And that's where we move into plant the gospel. And that term is used specifically that, we're not planting a church. We're just planting the gospel in the networks and relationships of the people around us. And out of that could spring a church. It could spring the whole idea that we're becoming the church together. We're becoming radiant, maybe in a different expression within a neighborhood or a leisure world or the park or whatever. But there becomes more of that church expression taking place, even if it is in here. And then ultimately we want to multiply those things. That churches should multiply, leaders should multiply, groups should multiply. So we always begin with multiplication in mind. That's the whole process. And last year when we talked about it, we made it more circular because it is the idea that it begins again, right? But I like this outline here to kind of see how they all kind of lead one to the next. And so that's, again, just a reminder of our pathway. And then within that pathway, we'll be looking at different tools and resources and ideas and practical advice. And so today, I chose Live as Missionaries is the category. And the theme or the topic for today is throwing parties. This fits within the bless model of listening and eating, right? That we want to eat with people, and it's within the eating that we're sharing, we're learning about them, we're listening to them. And so again, just to understand where it fits, you have your notes with 3 hole punches. I would encourage you to put that inside of your notebook under the tab that says Live as Missionaries. Are we all good? Any questions thus far? Okay, that's about as complicated as it's going to get today. So again, the topic is throwing parties, and it's timely because of the season. We're in this season, it's summertime, weather's getting nicer, people are starting, staying light later, people are more active, they're going places, they're doing more things. And so it's a natural time to be thinking about parties. And I'll give you an example. I know Lenny's not here today, but Lenny has season tickets to the Angels, but he can get other seats around him sometimes anyway. So a couple weeks ago, he invited me and he invited a bunch of other guys from Cursillo to go to the Angel game with him. And I think he got a couple of extra tickets, or he had a couple extra tickets left over. And he invited 2 other friends of his who had nothing to do with Cursillo. They're just from Leisure World. And it was a great way of kind of living out what we're talking about, of this idea of just bringing people together, right? And just hanging out, having conversation. We all met at Carl Strauss Brewery across the street early and had a little dinner and some drinks together, and really easy, natural time. I was sitting across from these 2 guys that were, live in Leisure World with Lenny, and he's known and just heard their stories. And it was so cool. By the end of the night, I ended up walking back with them, back to at the end of the game. We all left together, and the three of us were walking back, and they all kind of said the same thing, like, wow, what a great group of guys. Like, those guys are really cool. It was really nice meeting them. And it's like, that's all this is. Like, it's as simple as just inviting people and making connections. And and I had the same attitude. I told Lenny the same thing. These guys were awesome. They were great. And they invited me to Lenny's 4th of July party, which Carol doesn't even know about yet. And I may have ruined that. I literally think she doesn't know about it. And Lenny has an idea, but they're also doing construction. So if the construction is ready, get prepared. But anyway, they were it was funny because they're like, I said, well, guys, we've got a bunch of people from Radiant that live in Leisure World. My mom lives there, and hopefully I can see you at another event or something. And they said, oh, yeah, are you going to Lenny's 4th of July party? I'm like, Lenny didn't invite me. And the guy says, well, I'm inviting you. And I was like, perfect. You tell Lenny. I'm coming. And then I did tell Lenny that. And he goes, oh, don't tell Carol. And I ruined that, so I apologize. But really, this is kind of the idea. It's like we have these natural rhythms in life where we're hanging out with people, we're doing things, we're being social, and sometimes it's just doing that with more intention. We start here in the notes talking about Jesus loved to party, right? What does that mean? Throughout the Gospel of Luke especially, one author even said that in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is either going to dinner, at a dinner, or coming from a dinner, or a meal with somebody. It's like that was part of the social arrangement, like the way that he interacted with people, with strangers. And really this formula, it's on your notes. People plus food plus joy equals a party, right? Not all gatherings around food are a party, but when you bring in people and food and kind of just a nice, fun, casual environment, that's a party. And the size is not the important thing. It's not like, what's the requirement? It could be you and one other person. It could be you and a small group, and your neighbors, family groups, whatever it might be. But it's the idea of bringing people in, creating an intentional space for people to gather. And I think that's the key word here. It's intentional. It's not just, we often do this where we're just hanging out with people. We have friends that we like to go out to maybe have dinner with or grab drinks, or we went to the baseball game with them last week. And we try to do that occasionally, and that's good. But it's also kind of like sometimes it lacks that intentionality. We just sort of let it hang out there for a while. And instead, we want to be intentional about, hey, how can I do this more frequently? Or maybe think about, who else do I know that would fit in really well with this group? And this is where I come back to that example with Lenny. Here we were just this group of guys from Cursillo. We all know one another. But Lenny had this kind of thought, whether purposeful or not, but just the idea of who else might fit in with this group. Who else could, just be, find these guys entertaining, or, would fit right in, and invited them in. And that's, again, it's all it is. Having some intentionality around those things, because it's within those contexts of meals that we often have that shared kind of experiences where natural conversations begin. I don't like the idea of going out and hanging out with strangers. Like if I was one of the two guys that Lenny invited to this, and I didn't know the other 8, I probably wouldn't go, right? That would not be my inclination. But since I knew all these other people, it made it comfortable for me to say, oh yeah, it's great. But that's always don't we all ask that question? Maybe it's just me. But I think we're all junior hires, by the way. That's my philosophy of life is pretty much that everybody's a junior hire, okay? Personally, I think all men mature at 13 years old and then stop. But that's my own attitude. I won't get into that. Yes, good example. But it's the idea that we all have that same attitude. Like we get invited to a party or go, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Yeah, who's going? Who else is going to be there? I'm having a party. Who else will I know? Because we know that. We like to have that safety. Like even when we go out to do this, why Jesus sent his disciples in pairs, right? And so it's like we should be doing this together too. So, but think about that as well, is that I think we all want to have that experience of being comfortable. Who will I know? And then inviting them in. But once we're in that environment, just the environment creates that. Here I'm sitting across from 2 strangers. I'm like, oh, I'd rather be sitting, next to Steve Audie or something, because Steve's cool and we could have this fun conversation. But I was forced, just by chance, to sit with these two guys. And it was great. I had a wonderful time with those guys. I kept thinking, these guys would fit in at Radiant 100%. Like, it's not, but like, I did not jump the gun, okay? I'm not like, hey, come to church tomorrow, all right? But they knew. But it's one of those things, like, this is the introduction. But it's the same thing we do, that when we create the environment, that's really all we're talking about. Create an environment where it's comfortable for people to converse with one another. And start with people who you know, but also ask the question, who else would fit into this group? When Paula was starting her women's group, that's one of the things I asked her to do. I said, Paula, this is great. It's wonderful. I'm glad that you're getting women from Radiant together, maybe from Grace or other places. That's cool. But always be asking the question and thinking about who else could we invite into this group? Who else who is not a part of us could we be inviting into this group? And I know she's had neighbors and things like that come. And again, get to know you guys. She shared a story today of how Linda gave one of her neighbors an angel at this last meeting. And so it's like, that's the kind of idea. You create the environment where people can come together, usually around food, because food is a natural kind of gathering thing. It's less awkward, right? It's like the angels. When you're holding an angel in your hand, it's less awkward to go up to a stranger and begin talking to them because you're offering them something. Food does that. People will tell you a lot of times, like when we're standing around in church or whatever, one of the reasons we have like coffee and donuts or refreshments isn't just because we enjoy them, we do, but it's also because just holding a cup can give us something to hide behind. All right? And that's like not me making that up. That's like a psychological study. People just like that having. I did a Bible study with a guy, one of the worship leaders from Northeast. We went to a program, and he forgot his guitar. And he was kind of freaking out, like, I just feel so naked up here, like, I got a guitar. I'm like, yeah, you hide behind your guitar. It's like, just like I want to carry a Bible because I can hide behind the Bible. And it's not that we're not visible. It just feels like there's now more of like a barrier, which sounds weird, but it's something in our psyche. It's like it creates a little bit of space between us. But there's also something in that gathers us. When you're eating with somebody, you don't just sit around the table usually and eat, right? And just kind of eat your own food and put your head down and shovel it in. Maybe you do that, I don't know. But like when, after a while, coming in, sitting down at a table, what happens? You just start talking with people. This woman's talking about being a nurse, and she teaches at Cal State Fullerton in their nurse program. We started talking about, oh, my wife's a nurse, my daughter's a nurse, and we had this whole great conversation. I've known the woman for several years. Had no idea this is what she did. Had no idea that was a connection that we had. Just by sitting down and having lunch together around a table. Food does that for us. It gives us a reason to gather. And so it's not so much about the food as it is around the reason to gather. Does that make sense? So, again, Jesus used this all the time. Food in that culture, and I would say not too dissimilar for us today, food was a way of showing acceptance. Eating with people was a way of showing acceptance of them. And so Jesus did that. He ate with them. What was one of the major criticisms of Jesus? Why do you eat with tax collectors and sinners? Why does your teacher eat with them? And his response was, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. The way that Jesus was showing them mercy and healing them was through eating with them. It's Matthew. When he calls Matthew throws a party. Matthew the tax collector. And if you're a tax collector, who are your only friends? Other tax collectors. Then Jesus is like, perfect, I want to meet those guys. Let's go. And it's like invites himself into the party, which I kind of like too. He just invites himself. But Zacchaeus comes down from the tree and says, I'm going to throw a party. And it's like, this is the idea. Like, this is where Jesus shows acceptance. We do the same thing. When we eat with people and we give them that time. And I think that's part of the big thing for us today, is that we're giving them our time. We're giving them our attention. We're telling them and showing them that they matter to us, for us to do that. So that's kind of what's behind all of this. Now the practical side, any questions up to this point? And it's all stuff we've talked about, I think. But I just want to lay the groundwork, because then we get into how to throw the party, right? Many of you know how to do this. Tracy throws great parties. I'm sure there's other people here too. I just don't get invited to them. Just teasing. But it's the idea that, some people have a very natural gift of hospitality. And that's awesome. We'll talk about that. But all Christians are called to show hospitality. So the way in which you show hospitality, and which is really what we're talking about, the way in which you show hospitality might be different. But everybody is called to do that. It's very clear. That's one of the kind of the marks, if you will, or a call that Paul makes to disciples of Jesus. But the first thing that we should do, as we've learned with all things, is to pray. We're praying for God. This is where, when we talk about the blessed model, to begin with prayer, the blessed model is a missional model. Remember, it fits into this category as living as missionaries. So the extraordinary prayer is something about our connection with God, kind of on a macro level, even, and then more one-on-one, that we begin there. But then once we're in this environment of living as a missionary, it's a mindset that we have. And now we're thinking about not just our own prayers, our own needs, or our own connection with God, but specifically asking God to show us who is around us that he is leading us to. It becomes more missional in our prayer. Does that make sense? So beginning with prayer in the missional model, again, or living as missionaries is missional. We're thinking outside. We're asking God to, who is open maybe to this invitation, or who are the new people that he's introduced me to. Paul and Linda have shared stories of Leisure World, of people that they've come across, people they see in the gym. And people that they're praying for. And that's exactly it. Somebody you come across, a new neighbor or a new coworker or something, and you pray for them. And you're not just praying for them and their need, but you're also saying, hey, God, show me if this is a person that might be open. Who are the people that are around me that you might be leading me to? Who might need a connection or encouragement or belonging? What relationships might God already be cultivating? What relationships is God already working on? Again, I think of Dale and Robert, these two guys that I met. It's like, hey, I should be praying about this, and hopefully Lenny, would be praying about them, and some of you in Leisure World, you could be thinking about, are these two people that you want us to reach out to? And you also pray for, again, that peace, joy, meaningful conversations, open doors. Again, you're not in control of anything. What you're being asked to do is simply be open to create the environment. And I think about, again, my mom and her crew going over to Golden West. It was like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're going to say. We're just going to show up. It's like, yep, that's all this is. Who said it? Most of life is just showing up. Somebody said that. I think it's kind of good. Was it Mark Twain? It probably was. But it really kind of is. And like a lot of this is just showing up. It's showing up in people's lives and inviting them in. Secondly, find a teammate. As I said, if you've got somebody that's really good at throwing parties and you're like, that's not me, that's not my gift, lean into them. Let them do all of that, right? Or sometimes it's just like, how can we work together in this? So it's just not that sense of being alone. Or here's another thing. If you're inviting neighbors, let's say, I think Leisure World's a great example of all of this because it's a very defined neighborhood, right? You have your mutuals and things like that. You see people frequently. But let's say you were going to host, I think Linda used to, I don't know if you still do the tea. Used to do like tea. Not lately, but she would do tea. Maybe she's doing a tea and she was like, I want to invite people over to tea in my place. And, she talks to all her neighbors. One of the fears when you do that is anybody going to show up? Is anybody going to be here? When you find a partner, somebody's going to show up. And here's the thing. If nobody shows up, that's okay. Because now it's just the two of you, and you still have it. Does that make sense? It's not like you created, this whole thing by yourself, and now nobody shows up, and you're like, what do I do with all this food, or what do I do with this? It's like having another person that you know is going to be there, that's partnering with you, that's carrying the burden with you, is very important. Create a welcoming environment. And there's some questions here. It's not, again, you're adults, you can figure this out. But there's some things that made us not think about. I was never really one for hospitality personally, like to open my home to others. I was fine with family and stuff. But several years ago, I started a men's group at Red Hill. And, I just sprung it on Heather and the rest of them. Hey, a bunch of guys are coming over Monday night. Just clean up. Which was great, by the way, because every Monday my mother-in-law would clean. So it was a great opportunity to have my house kind of clean. But here's the thing. The reason... I'm not saying anything, okay? I've already said enough. But the whole idea was, actually, it wasn't like perfect. Our house was far. Like our dog is like a child, And there's toys everywhere, and there's stuffing everywhere, and there's socks everywhere. And then she takes my shoes out of the closet and brings them all out. I don't know why she does that. She doesn't. I leave them out. But anyway, it's just a mess. Now, we clean that stuff up, right? But it's not perfect. And now, men can get away with that. I understand. All right? I get it. But there was a beauty in that, too, of kind of like not having it so perfect. It just kind of be like, this is my life. Welcome. And again, most men are like, yeah, get it, don't care. Right? Women, you're a little different, right? But the whole idea is that sometimes you don't want it to be too perfect because you don't want people to have like, well, I can't do it because I can't do it as well as Tracy does it. And it's like, it's okay to be you. It's okay to not have everything perfect, right? Part of being a welcoming environment. I remember this one woman at Red Hills, wonderful woman. She just had this like immaculate house, but she had white carpet and like white cloth like sofas, right? And we were doing this thing called Dinner for Eight where you would rotate dinners with people. And one of the families she ended up paired with had children. And she was just like, I can't have children in my house. And I'm like, that's really against our whole vibe here, like what we're trying to do. She's like, well, I have white carpet. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. Like, why would you have white carpet? That seems ridiculous. I have like stone floor in my house. It's easy. I just pressure wash it. No, I'm just teasing. I would probably. But it's the idea. It's like if your environment is like unwelcoming, and it's not going to be conducive to that. But if you're like, hey, it's high tea and we need to have great, make sure the people you invite, fit into that mold. That's okay. But again, we're creating the environment where people feel welcome, they feel warm. And so again, some ideas there. Introduce people well. Again, make connections. Lenny is so good at this. I wish Lenny was here today because he is such a good example of this, where he's such a people person, right? He's always thinking about like who he knows and who he can talk to and who he can, and it was remarkable. I was amazed. Like I'm watching him at the Angel game and I'm yelling at the ushers because she's eating all of our cookies because Lenny keeps offering them to her. And I'm like, whoa, those are my cookies. Leave them alone. That was Lenny, though, right? He wants to bring everybody in. He wants to, hey, do you know so-and-so? Like, I come in, I'm sitting down, and he's introduced me to the ushers that he knows personally. Hey, this is my pastor. This is Joel. This is so-and-so. This is so-and-so. It's like that's what Lenny does. He's very natural at making those connections and networking with people. When you invite him in, pay attention to what the Spirit is doing. That's just something we're trying to practice naturally in all of our lives, but pay attention to what the Spirit might be doing in this moment. Like, where's the open door? A lot of times, again, we're asking for spiritual conversations to maybe come up naturally. Just listen for those things. When I'm talking with these two gentlemen at dinner ahead of the Angel game, Dale and Robert, we didn't talk about anything religious. They asked me what I did. I told them, and okay, that's cool. And it kind of, I don't want to say they were dismissive, but it was sort of like that wasn't their world, right? And that was fine. I just watched my language. Steve did not, but that's different. Sorry. I ratted him out. But it was the idea that, we were just having this natural conversation. And then I noticed one of them had a shirt on that had, religious overtones and things. And, I just kind of commented on that. And then as we're walking out at the end of the night, one of them starts asking questions. Just these weird questions. It was just something, kind of minor theological things. And oh, do you know this pastor? Have you heard this guy? And oh, yeah, I know that. And we just had this little conversation about it. So again, it kind of was a signal to me that there's some openness and some interest there. But again, this is just the beginning. We're not trying to like close the deal, sign them up, get them enrolled at Radiant next week. Okay? We don't have the agenda for that. We're just doing it and letting God do his work. And whatever God does, he'll do. And it may have to do with us, and it may not have to do with us. But we might be the one planting a seed. But just pay attention, because a lot of times the conversation may not be religious, but they might be exposing a pain point in their life. Maybe a struggle in a relationship or the loss of a job or something like that. Something where we can even step in and say, man, I'll be praying for you on that. And then following up and checking in with them, showing them that you listened and that you cared. Think of your context as well. Again, the hospitality will take different forms within different contexts. Leisure World's going to have kind of a different context than maybe a neighborhood. Or maybe you don't have a great neighborhood like Debbie and Tracy have. Maybe you're a little more isolated, or maybe you don't have those relationships, but your work environment is more conducive to that. Maybe it's the gym you go to, or the coffee shop you frequent, or something else. There's lots of the opportunities that are around you. Think of those contexts and what would work well for your context. So if it's, I think of my wife's work. It's very unusual, and it's, weird hours and things like that. But maybe in the context of that, there'd be a couple of coworkers who go out for breakfast after a shift or something. Or they do happy hour or something like that before a shift. Caught myself. But it's just whatever works in the context of your life. Again, just think of your relational networks and what works within those networks. There's some ideas here, just stuff. And by the way, I borrowed a lot of this stuff and condensed it and moved things around. But a lot of this comes from some resources we've used in the books from a group called KC Underground, Kansas City Underground, which is a network of what they'd call like underground church. It sounds really cool, right? Underground church. Right? They're just small little like micro churches that are spread throughout Kansas City. Instead of being a big kind of a gathering church, they're a scattered church. So they have a lot of good resources on stuff like this. And so a lot of what we do comes from them, and resources that I tailor for our environment. But here's just, again, some things to get your mind going. Again, when I talked to Linda about the tea thing years ago, it's like, yeah. Or sometimes it's just you can sit in your driveway if it's, and just invite people in. I've heard stories of people that's like literally just set up a table and have like a happy hour for their neighbors. It's like, and it's amazing because people are like, well, that's cool. I'm going to that, right? If you invite them to church, what? I'm not going to that. But it's like you just sit out there and you're having some wine or something and say, hey, you want to come and join us? Most people would be like, yeah, I'll come and join you. I mean, it doesn't have to be big. It's just the idea of opening yourself up and having some intentionality. So a couple questions I'm going to leave you with for you to consider and reflect on as you go. Who are the people that are already around you? Some of this can be a little intimidating because you're thinking of like, man, I'm too old to be making new friends. But it's really, again, who are the people already around you? You all have relational networks. They could be your family, by the way, too. Like the same system, the same process works within your own family. But who are the people that are already around you? What relationships feel especially spiritually open right now? Like where might God be opening a door for something deeper? Think about your fears or assumptions that keep you from inviting people in. And recognize, again, what is this? Is this God stretching me? And am I willing to be stretched? What kind of gathering would feel natural within your context or contexts? And then who could help you? Who could help you throw a party together? And then finally, what would it look like to create one intentional gathering this month? And since it's May 31st, I'm going to say, yeah, that's next month. You're not off the hook. You have 12 hours and 15 minutes to come up with a plan. No. Just be thinking about like putting maybe like this summer. Like put a time frame on it where it's not just like this year. Like give yourself a goal. I mean, I've heard some people's like, I should do this. And I do the same thing. It's like we should do that. We should have these people over. And then we don't. We should do another game night. And then we don't. Because life gets busy. So it's like, hey, maybe you look at your calendar and say, okay, between now and the end of August, is there something I can do? What's one thing I can do? And by the way, it could be the beautiful thing about this eat part of bless is not just the eating, but it's something you're already doing in your life, right? Most of us. Some of us do it more than 3 times a day. But it's the idea of you have at least 21 opportunities to invite somebody in just on a weekly basis. On a monthly basis, you could have 100 opportunities. It's like, is there a meal that I can invite somebody into? Or go out to breakfast or have coffee with somebody or go to happy hour. And again, it could just be one person. Or it could be, again, an event. Who are some people that I just want to kind of gather around and just have fun? Again, we're not doing a Bible study. We're not, but just like, hey, who are some fun people I just want to hang out with for an hour and a half or do something light like a happy hour tea where it's just for a defined period of time. Again, keep it simple, but be intentional. Any questions? Oh, that's all you wanted to know when you got in here 20 minutes ago. I'll tell you after. All right, let me pray and I'll let you go. Dear God, we thank you again for this call that you've put on our lives to not just receive the good news, but to share with others. And we do that, Lord, by living as missionaries in the places where you have called us and planted us. And so, God, we pray for open doors and open opportunities, for new relationships to come in, for old relationships to be fostered, so that we can begin to demonstrate the gospel through welcome and through hospitality, and just connecting people with each other as we point them to you. And so continue to guide us and lead us in this, Lord, and we pray this in your name. Amen.